I once knew a man who studied Buddhism for 3 years and decided to practice non-attachment. He ended his 10-year marriage, telling his wife that attachment causes suffering and he needed to be free. He quit his job because he shouldn't be attached to money. He distanced himself from his children because family attachment was an illusion. 1 year later, he was alone, depressed, financially ruined, and his children refused to speak to him. He had destroyed his life in the name of non-attachment. But here's the shocking truth. Everything he did was the exact opposite of what Buddhism actually teaches. He didn't practice non-attachment. He practiced abandonment, emotional coldness, and denial. He confused spiritual freedom with running away from responsibility. And he's not alone. Thousands of people are making the same catastrophic mistake, using Buddhist teachings to justify selfishness, avoidance, and disconnection, all while thinking they're on the path to enlightenment. If you want to understand what non-attachment really means and how it can free you to love more deeply, not less, subscribe right now and activate notifications. This is one of the most misunderstood and most transformative teachings in all of Buddhism. Don't miss this clarification that could change everything about how you relate to life and love. Before we dive into this crucial teaching, I want to be completely transparent with you. This video was created with the help of artificial intelligence for narration and visual elements, but it contains 100% deep academic research, meticulous curation, and dedicated human work to bring you authentic Tibetan Buddhist wisdom. My commitment is to correct dangerous misunderstandings and share what these teachings actually mean. Let's start with the epidemic of misinterpretation in Western spiritual culture. The distorted versions of non-attachment are everywhere. People confuse it with emotional indifference, thinking that being spiritual means not caring about anything. They confuse it with relational coldness, maintaining distance from everyone to avoid being attached. They use it to avoid commitment, jumping from relationship to relationship, job to job, never settling because settling would be attachment. They weaponize it to justify selfishness. I can't help you because I need to maintain my boundaries and not be attached to your problems. There's a term in psychology called spiritual bypassing. It means using spiritual concepts to avoid dealing with psychological issues and human responsibilities. Non-attachment has become one of the most abused concepts for this purpose. I've heard people say they abandoned their elderly parents because they were practicing non-attachment to family. I've seen people ghost their partners without explanation, calling it non-attachment. I've watched people refuse to commit to anything meaningful in their lives, careers, relationships, communities, all while claiming they're following the Buddha's path. The result is predictable. These people end up lonely, isolated, emotionally numb, disconnected from any sense of meaning or purpose, and they convince themselves this emptiness is enlightenment. Why does this distortion happen? Partly, it's inadequate translation. The English word attachment doesn't quite capture what the original Pali and Sanskrit terms mean. Partly, it's lack of cultural context. Western individualism emphasizes personal freedom and independence in ways that can distort communal Buddhist values. And partly, it's projection. People bring their own psychological issues, fear of intimacy, avoidant attachment styles, and use Buddhism to justify patterns they would have anyway. But here's the striking paradox that should make us question these interpretations. Tibetan monks, who are considered masters of non-attachment, are among the warmest, most compassionate, most relationally connected people you could ever meet. The Dalai Lama hugs people. He cries when he hears about suffering. He maintains deep friendships. He's profoundly concerned with the welfare of all beings. If non-attachment meant coldness and disconnection, how do we explain this? How does non-attachment produce more love, not less? That's what we're going to unpack. Have you encountered distorted versions of non-attachment? Or maybe practiced it in a way that created more suffering instead of less? Share in the comments. Let's be honest about where this confusion shows up. To understand what non-attachment actually means, we need to look at the original terms. In Pali and Sanskrit, the word usually translated as attachment is Upādāna. It literally means grasping, clinging, appropriating, or taking hold of. This is crucial. It's not talking about connection, affection, or love. It's talking about a specific quality of relating, that's characterized by desperate clinging based on fear of loss. Let me give you an analogy that makes this crystal clear. Imagine holding a child's hand as you walk together. There's connection, warmth, guidance. Now imagine grabbing the child's wrist tightly because you're terrified they'll run away. There's tension, pain, fear. The first is love. The second is attachment. Both involve physical contact, but the quality is completely different. The Buddha taught about 4 primary types of attachment. First, attachment to sensual pleasures. Not enjoying pleasure, but compulsively grasping at it, needing it, being unable to be at peace without it. Second, attachment to views and opinions. Clinging rigidly to beliefs, unable to consider other perspectives, your identity dependent on being right. Third, attachment to rituals and rules. Thinking that external observances alone will save you without internal transformation. Fourth, attachment to a fixed sense of self. Clinging to a particular identity, my story, my role, my personality, as if these are permanent and define who you are. Here's the mechanism of suffering according to Buddhist philosophy. It's not the object that causes pain, it's the grasping. When you grasp at something, any change causes anguish because change threatens what you're trying to hold permanently. A relationship changes, and if you're attached, you suffer intensely because you're trying to keep it exactly as it was. Your body ages, and if you're attached to youth, you suffer because you're fighting inevitable change. Your opinions are challenged, and if you're attached to being right, you suffer because your identity feels threatened. The core teaching is simple but profound. Everything is impermanent. Everything changes. Trying to make the impermanent permanent is the root of suffering. Non-attachment, the Pali word is viraga, or the Sanskrit vairagya, means liberation from this grasping. It doesn't mean liberation from what you love. It means liberation from the compulsive need to control, possess, and freeze things in time. If this is clearing up the confusion, hit the like button to help more people understand this correctly. This distinction is absolutely crucial. Now we come to the most important distinction, one that's rarely taught clearly in the West. Love and attachment are not the same thing. In fact, they're often opposites. This is revolutionary for most people because we've been conditioned to think they're synonymous. We say, "I'm so attached to you," as if it's romantic. But from the Buddhist perspective, that's exactly the problem. Let me break down the difference with precision. True love, what Buddhism calls metta or maitri, loving kindness, has specific characteristics. It desires the happiness and well-being of the other, even if that doesn't benefit you personally. It respects autonomy, freedom, and individuality. It can let go when necessary for the good of the beloved. It's not conditional on receiving something in return. It's spacious, generous, and liberating. Attachment, Upādāna, looks very different. It desires the person or thing for your own happiness. It's based on personal need. I need you to be happy. I need you to behave a certain way so I can feel secure. It's possessive and controlling. It grabs tighter when threatened with loss. It's conditional on what you receive back. If you stop making me happy, I stop loving you. It's constricting, demanding, and imprisoning. The Bodhisattva vow captures this perfectly. May all beings be happy, not may all beings make me happy. The focus is completely different. One is genuinely concerned with the welfare of others. The other is using others for personal, emotional security. Let me give you a concrete example. A father and his adult son. Love says, "I want you to be happy. Even if you choose a path different from what I hoped for you, I'll support your genuine calling even if it disappoints my expectations." Attachment says, "You need to become what I envisioned so I can feel secure about my role as a father and prove I was successful. Your choices reflect on me, so I need to control them." In romantic relationships, love celebrates the growth and evolution of your partner. You want them to become more fully themselves, even if that means they change in ways you didn't expect. Attachment fears any change. It wants to freeze the person exactly as they were when you fell in love. Any deviation feels threatening. Love says, "I'm grateful for who you are and who you're becoming." Attachment says, "Please don't change because I'm afraid of the unknown." Here's the liberating truth. Non-attachment allows you to love with the totality of your heart, without the paralyzing fear of loss. When you're not desperately clinging, you can be fully present. You can appreciate deeply without the anxiety of what if I lose this constantly running in the background. You can give yourself completely without the armor of self-protection. This is not less love. This is more love, purer love, freer love. Keep watching, because now we're going to see exactly how this works in the Tibetan Buddhist context and in practical application. Tibetan Buddhism does not teach renunciation of relationships. It teaches purification of relationships from neurotic attachment. This is a crucial distinction. The ideal of the bodhisattva is to love all beings infinitely, to develop such vast compassion that you're willing to work for countless lifetimes to help every single being achieve liberation. How is this possible without attachment? Because this love doesn't depend on receiving anything. It's based entirely on giving, on wishing others well, on acting for their benefit. It's not transactional. It's not, I'll love you if you love me back. It's simply, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Consider His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He has profound emotional connections with people. He weeps when he encounters suffering. He laughs with joy when he meets old friends. He's deeply concerned with the Tibetan people, with all of humanity, with all beings. This is not a cold, detached person. This is someone overflowing with warmth and connection. And yet he's not destroyed by change or loss. When things don't go as hoped, when efforts fail, when people disappoint, he maintains his equanimity. Not because he doesn't care, but because his well-being isn't dependent on controlling outcomes. His love doesn't require things to stay the same. Shantideva, the great 8th century master, taught about equanimity. But equanimity doesn't mean feeling equally little for everyone. It means having the potential to love everyone equally. Right now, you probably love your children more than strangers. That's natural. But the practice is gradually expanding the circle of genuine care until it includes all beings. You don't diminish love for those close to you. You increase love for everyone else. In practical terms, you can have close, special relationships with family, partner, friends, and practice non-attachment. How? By loving them completely while recognizing impermanence. By not trying to freeze the relationship in time. By not making their behavior responsible for your inner peace. By wanting their happiness even if their path takes them away from you. There's a beautiful story about Milarepa, one of Tibet's greatest yogis. He had profound devotion to his teacher Marpa. He would do anything Marpa asked, endured years of difficult trials out of love and respect. But this wasn't neurotic dependency. When Marpa sent him away to practice alone in caves for years, Milarepa went joyfully. When they were separated, Milarepa was at peace. The love was deep, but it wasn't clinging. There's a practice in Tibetan Buddhism sometimes called love that liberates. You wish for the people you love to achieve full enlightenment, to realize their Buddha nature, to be completely free. Even if that means the relationship changes or ends, that's a love so vast it wants ultimate freedom for the beloved, not continued dependency. The biggest proof that non-attachment isn't indifference comes from another core Buddhist teaching: compassion. Buddhism simultaneously teaches non-attachment and unlimited compassion. How can you be non-attached and deeply compassionate at the same time? Isn't compassion a form of caring, of connection? Yes, exactly. And this proves they're compatible when understood correctly. Compassion, karuna in Sanskrit, means feeling the suffering of others and fervently wishing to alleviate it. This requires profound connection, not distance. It requires that you're moved by the pain of others, that you're motivated to help, that you feel their struggles in your own heart. Tibetan masters cry when they see suffering. They act vigorously to help. The Dalai Lama has spent his entire life working tirelessly for peace, for Tibetan freedom, for human rights, for interfaith dialogue. This is not the behavior of someone who doesn't care. But here's the key. He's not lost in the suffering. He doesn't collapse into despair. He doesn't become paralyzed by the enormity of the world's pain. Why? Because he's not attached to outcomes in a way that destroys his peace when things don't go as hoped. He's not identified with the suffering as if it defines him. Think of a skilled doctor. The doctor is deeply concerned with the patient's welfare. She does everything possible to help, works long hours, uses all her skill and knowledge. But she doesn't panic in a way that would prevent her from helping effectively. She maintains enough inner stability to make clear decisions. If a patient dies despite her best efforts, she grieves. But she's not destroyed. She continues to help the next patient. That's non-attachment combined with deep caring. Non-attachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel fully without being controlled by the feelings. It means you can be present with suffering without drowning in it. The Tonglen practice we discussed in a previous video is perfect evidence of this. Tonglen involves breathing in the suffering of others and breathing out relief and peace to them. This practice requires the courage to feel deeply, to open your heart to pain, to connect profoundly with the struggles of all beings. It's the exact opposite of indifference, and yet it's practiced by people who are masters of non-attachment. The paradox resolves when you understand this. The less attached you are to your own comfort, your own emotional security, your own need for things to be pleasant, the more you can genuinely care about others. Attachment to your own well-being makes you protective, closed, self-focused. Freedom from that attachment opens you to care about everyone. Continue watching, because now we get into the practical applications you can use immediately in your life. Let's make this concrete with specific life areas. In romantic relationships, practicing non-attachment means loving fully without an agenda of control. It means celebrating who your partner actually is, not trying to mold them into your fantasy. It means honest communication without the fear that speaking the truth will destroy the relationship. If you have to walk on eggshells to keep someone, that's attachment and fear, not love. Non-attachment gives you the freedom to be authentic. And here's what many people fear. If the relationship ends, yes, you'll feel pain. Sadness is natural, grief is appropriate. But it's not existential devastation, because your well-being doesn't depend entirely on one person. You loved deeply, you're grateful for the time you had, and you can let them go if that's what's best. In parental relationships, non-attachment means loving your children intensely while recognizing they're not your property or an extension of your ego. It means guiding them without controlling them, letting them make mistakes and learn, not basing your identity and worth on their achievements. When parents are attached, they live through their children. They need their kids to succeed so they can feel successful. They need their kids to make certain choices so they can feel validated. That's a terrible burden on a child. Non-attached parenting says, I love you unconditionally. I'll support you. I want you to discover who you are, not who I need you to be. In career, non-attachment means dedicating yourself fully to your work without defining your worth by success or failure. You give your best effort. You work with excellence. But you're not in desperate neurotic striving where your entire identity collapses if you don't get the promotion or the project fails. If you lose your job, you reorganize and move forward without a total identity crisis. Your value as a person isn't determined by your job title. With material possessions, non-attachment means appreciating and caring for what you have without being enslaved by it. You enjoy your home, your car, your belongings, but you're not defined by them. Generosity flows naturally because you're not clutching everything tightly. If something breaks or is lost, you're disappointed but not destroyed. Here's a practical exercise. Identify areas where you love versus areas where you're attached. The sign of attachment is panic when you imagine loss, controlling behavior, your well-being completely dependent on constancy. The sign of love without attachment is deep appreciation, desire for the well-being of the other person or care for the thing, but inner peace even when imagining impermanence. You can say, I love this deeply and I know it will change or end someday, and I'm at peace with that truth. Which area of life do you struggle most with attachment? Relationships, career, identity, self-image? Share below. Naming it is the first step. Let me give you 3 levels of practice for developing non-attachment. Level 1 is for beginners. Simple recognition of attachment. The first step is just noticing when you're grasping. Pay attention to physical sensations. Attachment often shows up as tension, contraction, tightness in the chest or stomach, a feeling of fear in your body. Mental patterns include obsessive rumination. I can't stop thinking about this. Compulsive worry about possible loss. The need to control people and situations. Emotionally, there's anxiety that's disproportionate to the actual situation. The practice at this level is simple. Pause and name it. This is attachment, not love. I'm grasping right now. Just that awareness begins to create space. Level 2 is intermediate, gradually letting go. This involves contemplation practices. Sit quietly and reflect. Everything I love is impermanent. Change is inevitable. Can I love deeply while accepting impermanence? The answer, if you explore honestly, is yes. You can. Start with letting go of small things. Your preference for how the day should go. Your need for others to agree with you. Your rigid plans that create stress when they change. Practice flexibility. When something doesn't go as planned, notice the impulse to resist and then consciously relax. Say to yourself, this is different than I expected, and that's okay. I can adapt. Gradually, this develops mental and emotional flexibility that extends to bigger things. Level 3 is advanced, free love. This is the state where you love so fully that there's no residue of fear. You give your whole heart and simultaneously hold nothing. Tibetan masters describe this as loving without holding, embracing without grasping, profound connection without imprisonment. This isn't achieved through willpower or forcing yourself not to care. It arises from deep realization of impermanence and the nature of true love. It comes from seeing clearly that grasping doesn't actually protect you or keep what you love. It only creates suffering. When you see this completely, attachment naturally dissolves and what remains is pure love, vast and free. We're approaching the final and deepest teaching, so stay with me through to the end. The ultimate freedom that non-attachment offers is this: the ability to love without fear. When you release grasping, you discover an unlimited capacity to love. The paradox is complete. By trying to hold love tightly, you suffocate it. By letting it be free, it flourishes. Think of trying to hold water in a clenched fist versus letting it flow through open hands. The clenched fist loses it all. The open hand can receive continuously. There's a story of a Tibetan master who lost everything. His monastery was destroyed. His students were scattered. He was forced into exile. He had every reason to be devastated, but when asked how he maintained his peace, he said, "I never grasped any of it. I loved my monastery deeply. I loved my students profoundly, but I never confused love with ownership. When it was taken, I grieved the loss of something precious, but I wasn't shattered because my peace never depended on holding it permanently." This is the transformation that non-attachment offers. You shift from "I love you, please don't leave me," to "I love you, be free and happy." From "I need this to be happy," to "I appreciate this deeply while it's here." From "what if I lose this," to "everything changes, so I'll love completely right now." The result is radical. Your relationships become more authentic because they're not based on fear and neediness. They're based on genuine care and mutual freedom. Your work becomes more meaningful because you're not desperately clinging to outcomes. You give your best and release the results. Your life becomes fuller because you're present in each moment instead of being terrorized by an uncertain future. Here's the final teaching, and it's beautifully simple. When you're not attached to anything, you're free to be fully present with everything. Attachment pulls you out of the present. It's always worried about the future. What if I lose this? How can I make sure this stays the same? It's haunted by the past. It used to be better. Why did it have to change? Non-attachment returns you to now. Right now, this person is here. I'll love them completely. Right now, this moment is beautiful. I'll experience it fully. Right now, I'm alive. I'll be grateful without needing it to last forever. Let me give you a practice you can do today. Choose one person you love. It could be a partner, child, parent, close friend, and practice loving them in a completely non-attached way. Wish for their happiness independent of you. Celebrate who they are without any agenda to change them. Connect fully without fear. Notice what arises. You might discover that love without fear is deeper, more joyful, more peaceful than you've ever experienced. You might find that when you stop trying to hold them, you actually feel closer. And you might realize that this is what you've been searching for all along. Not a love that owns and controls, but a love that liberates and celebrates. Let me bring this all together. We started with a devastating example of misinterpretation. Someone who destroyed his life thinking he was practicing Buddhism. We explored the crucial distinction between love and true attachment, between connection and grasping. We discovered that non-attachment doesn't mean loving less. It means loving more deeply, more freely, without the poison of fear and control. We learned practical applications and progressive levels of practice. The liberating truth is this: when you release grasping, you discover that true love was always available, always abundant, always free. Where do you notice the most attachment in your life? Is it in relationships, in your identity and self-image, in your plans for the future, in your need for things to be a certain way? And how could you begin to practice loving without grasping? Share your honest reflections. This is a practice we do together, supporting each other in learning what real freedom looks like. If this teaching has transformed your understanding of love and freedom, subscribe to this channel. Every week we explore profound Tibetan wisdom that liberates you to live with more authenticity, more love, and more peace. Click subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss these teachings that could change everything. Share this video with someone who's confused about non-attachment or someone who's using spirituality to avoid genuine intimacy and responsibility. This clarification could completely change how they relate to life and love. It could save them from years of unnecessary suffering and isolation. I'll leave you with words from the great Tibetan master, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. He said, "The everyday practice is simply to develop a complete acceptance and openness to all situations and emotions, and to all people, experiencing everything totally without mental reservations and blockages, so that one never withdraws or centralizes into oneself. This produces a tremendous energy, which usually is locked up in the process of controlling and manipulating our experience. When you're not busy defending yourself, when you're not grasping and controlling, that energy is freed for loving, for being present, for experiencing life fully. Practice loving someone today with open hands, full heart, and zero fear. That is non-attachment. That is freedom. That is the path.